straight behind you. You're going to have to rotate your body to find the target, which is the chin. All right? Side view of that. All right, here are the two self-defense elbows to the rear in relationship to the attack coming from the rear. Carlos is going to put me in a bear hug. Now, in reality, it would be a shot to the groin first. I'm isolating elbows right now, so I'm not going into a full scenario. The first elbow was, remember, I'm going to rotate my body and find the shot. Again, I am rotating my body and finding the shot. That will loosen him up a little bit. Okay, in other words, in reality, shot to the groin, loosen up a little bit. Now comes the second elbow. From here, I'm going to bump. Me bumping is going to present his chin. And from here, I pick up the chin from underneath. So again, first elbow, one. Second elbow, bump, and pick up the chin from underneath. From here, I'll be turning and going into the objective I want to go from there. That brings us to fighting elbows. We're done with the self-defense elbows. Now again, self-defense elbows have their place in the engagement, and now we're getting into the fight. The fight was scheduled either by defending yourself or either verbally it got you into putting your hands up and you're about to fight with him. Now the targets are changing. As soon as he picks up his hand, his throat will not be available anymore. Therefore, that front elbow is no longer available. I'm going to have to adapt my weapons to the situation. The first elbow out of face-to-face contact or hand-to-hand combat will be what we call the overhead elbow. I am going to come from over the top. Now there's three things I'm doing. I'm going to have to step in and close the gap. If I'm standing in relationship to my opponent too close to begin with, I didn't have a transaction. Therefore, the first thing I'm going to have to do is step in. Second thing is my defensive motion. In other words, if I can elbow him, he can elbow me. I'm going to have to occupy my forehead while I hit him, so I don't receive the same technique, and basically we're both getting hit at the same time. So in other words, I close the gap, I put the hand on my forehead. From here, I raise my elbow. My elbow is going to glaze right on his forehead, and I'm swimming into my opposite armpit, giving me a full range of motion. What this will create is that the tip of the elbow will connect on his forehead and give me two results. Either I'm going to give him a lump that's going to throb. In other words, the impact is going to short circuit him in thinking, ouch. Or I'm going to actually cut him above the eyebrow. When I cut him above the eyebrow, he's going to have a curtain blood going straight down his eyes. Either he will panic out of fear or either he'll get enraged. Either way, it's going to work to my advantage in the continuation of the engagement. All right, second fighting elbow is the front elbow. The front elbow is done if he rushed in, and in some cases, if he's much taller than you, and defensive-wise, he already engaged, but you're already in a fighting stance. The elbow's power, because it comes from the front, comes from the pivot of the leading leg. If you throw that elbow without pivoting the front leg, you're going to end up pulling your lower back, and you're going to pull your back in the middle of the fight. Not good for you. Make sure you pivot. As you pivot, the elbow gets a nice range of motion that's free. Therefore, it'll be effective. The same thing happens here. I'm going to have to put my hand on my forehead because if I can elbow him, he can elbow me. All right, that's the second elbow. Here comes the third elbow. The third elbow I like to refer as the sensor elbow. It is a defensive elbow that I use as a sensor. In other words, he engaged and he came at me out of nowhere. At the last resort, I'm going to pick up my elbow right in front of my face. My elbow ends up right in front of my face as a shield. That is defensive. But on the other hand, also, it is offensive in the sense of it's been used as a sensor. When I pick up my hand here, what will happen, either he's going to collide his punch on my elbow, either he'll get deflected this way, or either get deflected this way. Therefore, I will feel that. That's why I call it a sensor elbow. So it's offense, defense at the same time, and serving me into the overlap. So I'm coming right here. All right, it's very important here that you realize that you're going to have to what I call turtle up. Don't stay everything loose. If you're under attack, you're going to crunch anyway. You're going to squeeze anyway. I want you to bring your shoulders up like a turtle brings his head into his shell and make everything tight. So when he hits you on impact, you're going to have type of a shield. All right? Next will come the overlap after that elbow. It'll be 1 and 2. Watch what I'm doing. I'm coming here. That shielded me. From here, I step in and serve the second elbow. That is called in Israel hiding behind your weapons. 1, 2. I don't go 1, let me see where he is, and attack again. Because maybe if he came with a multiple attacker, when you open, he hit you on the second shot. It's 1, hide behind that weapon and drop it on him. 1, hide behind the weapon and drop it behind him. Next in this segment comes the knee. All right? The knee is a very good tool because the fight is upstairs. And all of a sudden, you bring it downstairs without letting him know there's a transaction. All right? On the knee, you're going to bring both of your hands to the side of where the knee is coming from. You're bringing both of your hands to the side where the knee is coming from. I don't drop my knees this way. This way. As I do so, I am going to lean backward and pick up my knee from underneath. When I knee him in the groin, I knee from underneath, not at it. So I create damage, not just a shot to the groin. All right? Boom. This is the fighting elbows in relationship to your opponent. Me and Carlos get in a fighting stance. Now earlier, the self-defense elbow targeted his neck. Right now, by Carlos simply picking up his hand, that neck target is no longer available. I'm going to have to adapt to the situation. What I'm doing is I'm stepping in and I'm coming right down his forehead. Right down his forehead. Stepping in, right down his forehead. Do not forget to cover up. If you step in and you did this and he did that, basically both of you got hit and that's not good. Make sure you cover up in the process. All right, second elbow, Carlos rushed in and I catch him right across. And I catch him right across. Right here. All right? And finally you have the sensor elbow. He comes in with that punch and I put it right here. Right now, when I feel him, and that's why I call it a sensor elbow, I'm going to ignore everything he's going to do. I don't know what's next on his agenda. I know what's next on my agenda. From here, step in and take my shot. Again, 1, step in and take my shot. Now, in reality, this is the best scenario, that he gets right here and he damages his hand. Sometimes he'll end up slipping the punch over here, and sometimes he'll end up over there. It does not matter. In the sense of, you just take your attack right after knee. All right? And finally, you have the knee. The knee is important that you never knee from the front. If you knee from the front, it's weak. If you knee from the front, you're off balance. Weakness and off balance is not part of our repertoire. I want to make damage. All right, therefore I'm always going to knee from the rear. Now regardless if he threw a punch or not, I am going to clear. Don't throw a punch yet. He comes in and I pick up that knee from underneath. I'm driving the knee from underneath. Now if in case he threw that punch, what will happen is I actually cleared that punch with me coming here. Versus if I went this way, I would have ate that punch in the face. All right? All right, before we continue into fighting drills, into kicks, I want to show a few more techniques when you're inside and when you're up close. You can always slap the groin. We don't like to hit the groin in Agana. Sometimes the person has tight jeans and that shot is not penetrating. Anytime you slap the groin from any angle, we call it in Israel, you're ringing the bell. And when you ring the bell downstairs, they always pay attention upstairs. Okay, so basically slapping the groin. Number two, you got the ear slap. Now when you ear slapping in training, keep your fingers open. In reality, I'm going to cup. And when I slap him here, what that do is it's going to mess up his equilibrium. You're not going to knock him out, but he's going to be all messed up from his equilibrium. That will give you the freebie for the overlap. You also have an eye gouge. Now, I know it sounds bad, but in Israel, we say when we gouge the eye, make sure you're playing ball. As in bowling. In other words, make sure the thumb goes all the way into the skull. All right? Again, this is for worst case scenario. You'll have to decide what your objectives are. Again, that's the eye gouge coming in. All right? Versus the finger jab, that's an entry technique. And finally, we have the headbutt. Now, the worst scenario you can do is headbutt somebody like this. You're going forehead against forehead. That is considered in our system skill against skill or conditioning against conditioning. You never know how conditioned your opponent is in the street. You don't know how tough your enemy is on the battlefield because you never train with him. In other words, you cannot go skill against skill. I'm going to go strategy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop him right on top of my head. When I drop him, I'm dropping his face on top of my head, right there, all right, driving him down. That will short circuit him in the sense of his nose will break. He's going to start tearing from his eyes, and the pain is too much for him to mentally and emotionally take, versus going here and see who's tougher. The weapon of biting. Okay, biting is a natural weapon. When push comes to shove, you can bite. Okay, usually the biting to us as Agana practitioner will be done on the ground because it's an effective weapon. Now, there are people who have debates about do I bite, don't I bite, there's diseases, there's blood transmission, this and that. If he's going to kill you because you never got to bite, all this irrelevant. In other words, when the situation becomes desperate, you're going to have to go up with a weapon that's going to be able to match that desperate situation. As far as biting, as an Agana student, if you have the option, I want you to bite where there is clothing, when it's not connected straight to the skin without clothing. In other words, if I'm on the ground and I can position myself to bite right here, I'll go ahead and bite here before I bite here. The biting is there as a short circuit technique. In other words, when you bite somebody, you're definitely getting their attention. The only rule we have about biting is that your teeth meet. If you're going to choose to bite, you better make sure those teeth meet. There's no biting, halfway biting. If you're going to bite, go ahead, teeth meet. The best target to bite is the neck. But again, you're going to have to adjust yourself according to the situation. I don't want you to be upstairs and close the gap, and instead of elbow him in the neck, go ahead and bite him in the neck. Because you have a weapon that can be adjusted at that situation to elbow, which will short circuit him and do damage, I'm going to choose the elbow. However, when you're in a situation where your hands are tied up and the only thing that's available there, you have to learn to take it. In other words, if the opportunity is there and you don't have the weapon in your mind to use it, opportunity is going to be irrelevant. So biting is a weapon. You use it according to the situation, and if you choose to bite, remember, those teeth must meet. Okay, that brings us to kicks. Kicking in Agana is done only waist and down. We don't kick to the head like in sports systems. Just like I wouldn't be punching somebody in the toes, there's no reason for me to kick somebody in the head. In Israel, we say if you want to kick somebody in the head, chop his leg first, he'll drop down, and then you kick him in the head. On that concept, the first kick coming in is the round kick. The round kick targets the front leg. Now, regardless if he's in left lead, switch lead please, Chris, or right lead, I'm going to target the front leg. In other words, I'm not dancing. Every time he switches, I'm not switching with him. I'm not playing games. My target is the front leg no matter what. What I'm doing is I'm going to airborne my leg upward and chop in an angle in the nerve on the side. All right? As I airborne, I'm going to keep my body and my posture in the back because I want to stay away from his hands, because if he can kick me or punch me while I kick him, he can cut my throat. I'm going to keep my throat way back so he cannot reach me. All right? Second kick is the groin shot. All right, assuming my fighting sense again, now I'm going to target the groin. I'm not going to kick from the front leg that's going to be too weak or it's going to get me off balance. I'm going to shoot from my rear leg. Now, while I do so, I am going to target the groin from underneath. I'm hitting the testicle from underneath and smashing them into the pelvis bone. I am not pointing at the groin. I'm kicking from underneath. As I do so, I'm going to drop my hand. So coordination-wise, I can lean back while I kick him so I stay away from his hands. All right? Third kick is the side kick. The side kick again is going to target his front leg. All right. The side kick is the only kick that I'm going to use with my lead leg for the only reason that if I kick side kick from the rear leg, it's going to be too telegraphing and it's just going to pull out and not let me hit the target. I am using my front leg. Now you got two targets you can shoot at. You can shoot at his kneecap and that will incapacitate him if that's your objective. Or you can kick him in the middle of the thigh, either breaking his leg or causing enough damage to stop him in his motion for the temporarily versus incapacitate him. That will be up to your objective in your engagement. All right, the side kick comes in right there. Now, same thing happens here with my hands position. I am leaning and dropping this hand for coordination. I am making sure I'm staying away from his hands. If he can reach me with a punch, he could have cut my throat. Side kick goes right here. Side kick goes right here. And again, if you want, you can incapacitate him into going to the kneecap. When you kick, what you use of the foot depends on two things. Number one, the distance between you and your opponent, and also what kind of shoes you're wearing. If you're wearing army boots or steel toe, by all means use that. In other words, if I'm kicking the round kick, I'm going to use that tip of that shoe going right into that nerve. Right into that nerve. If somehow you're wearing shoes that are not hard and you don't want to take a chance on breaking your toes, or you're wearing sandals, or you're barefooted, so to speak, then you're going to want to kick with the shin. Okay, avoid kicking with the instep. If you go to kick with the instep and Chris goes to block the kick and you catch that kneecap, your instep will shatter on that kneecap. You want to kick with the shin part of the foot, with the shin part of your feet, as far as the round kick. Switch feet, please. As far as kicking the groin, same thing applies here. If you got strong shoes, sneakers, and you can kick with the tip from underneath, you do so. Do not kick with the instep. Do not kick with the instep. If you're up closer, shove it up with your shin. But don't kick with the instep. Avoid doing that. As far as the side kick, you want to try to kick with the heel. that is considered a fine motor skill. Fine motor skill under pressure will fail. You want to use as much as the foot, so you have more of an array of defense and offense when you kick that kick, okay? And definitely don't kick with the ball of the feet, because then what will happen is you're going to slip and you're going right into his weapons, okay? You want to have as much as possible from the whole foot. You have 3 kicks. Now I want to make this clear. All the techniques you're viewing in this tape, you can do out of left lead and out of right lead. You not necessarily do it only out of one lead. Now, naturally, on left lead, you're going to have 1 kick out of the 3 that you like the best. Me personally, I like the round kick. So regardless now that that leg is up front versus what we had before, I'm going to take that target right here. All right? On a right lead, my favorite kick is the side kick. Okay? You're going to have 1 out of the 3 out of each lead that you like the best. That is probably the one that's going to be there when you attacked. In other words, it's going to be easy for you to fire it, because psychology-wise or physically-wise, it's easy for you to execute, or because you just like it. Therefore, now we're going to freestyle. Now you can attack with kicks defensively and offensively. In other words, if Chris closes the gap to me, I can use that round kick as a defense. If Chris keeps his distance, I can step in and attack. All right? With freestyling, as far as zones is concerned, every human being can be broken down to 3 zones. The high zone will be shoulder and up. The mid zone will be shoulder to hip. And the low zone will be hip to the ground. When you attack a person, you're going to have to try to play with those zones. If you get stubborn or you get stuck and only attacking one zone, you're being physical. You're not using strategies and you're not confusing him. Most human beings, when you touch them, in the brain, there's a sense of saying, okay, my shoulder has been touched. And his thought and all his focus is going there. If I start touching him here, 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 he's going to go, oh, whoa, whoa, overload, no good. That's exactly what you want to do when you attack a human being. You want to overload his thinking process. That's called short-circuiting his thoughts. Also, as far as creating damage, you always want to create a damage that sustains enough pain that it's going to short-circuit him on a physical level and mental level. I want to put him on a defensive mode. In a fight, there's 2 parts in a fight. There's a predator and there's a victim. You're going to have to decide what you want to be. Right away, for you to make him the victim, you're going to have to create damage. That damage has to make him break his confidence. I am not attacking him only physically. If I attack him only physically, if he's stronger than me and bigger than me like Chris is, I'm going to lose. I want to attack his confidence. I want to attack what he's got inside. That will be done by damaging his psychology part of my targets. Now, as far as the targets that's going to create a damage, that's going to take his confidence. You take a man's groin, most of the time, it's going to make an effect. So, in Agana, groin is a big part of the target. The face, okay, you want to hit the face right in the middle. So what will happen is, as soon as you hit him in the nose, he's going to start tearing. Not only that, a lot of human beings, when they get hit in the face, I can't believe I got hit in the face. Therefore, it's right away giving the focus. So the nose is very big. Eyes, when I finger jab, or I gouge his eyes, or I, so to speak, touch his eye, I am actually blinding him. When I blind him, just if I do the eye gouge upward, I'm blinding him. Right now, he's thinking, what's next? That's short-circuiting his confidence. He doesn't know what's coming in. All right? Groin, eyes, nose, throat. Anytime you attack in the throat, he's not going to be able to breathe. He's either gagging. If you have the shot,